is Indian Country Today.
Esquili, yes, thank you for joining us. I'm Patty Tholahungba. Here are the headlines for Tuesday, July 21st, 2020. A Menominee teacher from Wisconsin wins a National Human and Civil Rights Award. Ben Greeno teaches traditional beadwork, pottery, basketry, and weaving. His work is now being recognized by the National Education Association.
Poso, Nuiswan Ben Greeno, Watnawe na Akayan, Mawao na Totem, Mishik Kaish Mamachitawa, Agnesh Pamatasewak. My name's Ben Greeno, and I'm known as Watnawe to my people, which means the lightning flashing off in the distance. I'm of the Wolf Clan, and Kaish Mamachitawak, which means the ancient movers, are my people. Today we're known as Menominee. I want to say Waiwanan, which is thank you to my community. And especially to my students. They are the driving force in everything that I do. Everything that I've researched, everything that I've learned is all to create a connection between my students and our original ways of being, our traditional Menominee ways.
He teaches at Menominee Indian School on the reservation in northeastern Wisconsin. The NEA began the awards program in 1967 to recognize people who expand opportunities for students of color and educators. In Montana, the Northern Cheyenne tribe is trying to block the sale of coal from public lands. The tribe and Democratic attorneys general from California, New York, New Mexico, and Washington, as well as environmentalists, filed a lawsuit challenging the Trump administration's coal program. They allege it's illegal to resume coal sales that were previously halted under the Obama administration due to climate change. The lawsuit was filed in the U.S. District Court in Montana. It's just one of many legal challenges launched against the Trump administration since they pushed for more domestic energy production and less regulations. 4 state-recognized tribes in Vermont can now hunt and fish in that state for free. Governor Phil Scott signed the bill passed by the legislature that grants tribal members of 4 Abenaki tribes permanent hunting and fishing licenses. The tribes say passing the act goes back to honoring historical land agreements made by the first settlers in that region. A few powwows will take place with limitations on who is invited. This weekend, the Winnebago tribe of Nebraska will host its 154th annual homecoming powwow, and only local tribal citizens will be allowed to participate. The tribal paper, the Winnebago Indian News, reports that social distancing precautions will be taken at the powwow. And over the Labor Day weekend, the Shinnecock Indian Nation's powwow will be closed to all outside visitors, and that's the first time in the powwow's 74-year history. The tribe knows this will have a huge impact on local vendors who rely on large crowds to buy their food and art. And now for an update on COVID-19 cases in Indian Country, let's go to Jordan Bennett Begay. Jordan?
Yate Patty, Yate Shikisto Shidinaem. So there's a new study showing promising results of an early vaccine trial for the novel coronavirus. A team of scientists at the University of Oxford, England, published their research Monday. It said that this trial is shown to have a dual immune response in the body in people ages 18 to 55. And dual immune response means the vaccine caused white blood cells to attack cells infected with the virus, and an antibody response to emerge within 28 days that the vaccine was taken by the individuals. And the team began testing in April in approximately 1,000 people, and half of them received the experimental vaccine. And the World Health Organization said the results are good news, but warned, quote, there's a long way to go. And the next step is to confirm if the vaccine can protect against the novel coronavirus, and then to test this vaccine on a larger group of people. And if it works, the big question is who will get the vaccine first? So now let's take a look at the latest COVID-19 numbers from our database. There are 14,562 positive cases and 599 deaths in the Indian health system. Again, that's a total of 14,562 positive cases and 599 deaths as of July 21st. And the Pueblo of Zuni, New Mexico announced 2 more deaths of tribal citizens in their community. The Pueblo has a total of 24 deaths, and they now have a total of 473 positive tests. And Zuni is a small community of approximately 6,300 people, Patty.
Wow, that means that they're hugely affected. So we're keeping an eye on Zuni. Jordan, thank you so much.
Yeah, Patty.
And we'll be right back.
This is Indian Country Today.
When cases of the coronavirus started appearing in March, many organizations had to quickly adjust. At the Native Wellness Institute, 80% of their business is done by going into the communities, meeting with the people and working directly with everyone from youth to elders. And clearly, that could no longer happen. So the leadership adjusted and switched to social media, and they reached out to help Indian Country cope with this pandemic. One of the founders is Theta Newbreast, and she joins us today to talk about the Power Hour that's now hosted daily. Welcome, Theta.
Okay, Sinadapi, that means hello, and how are you all doing? This is fabulous, fabulous. We're in our 18th week with the Power Hour. What would you like to know, Patty?
Well, first, I want to congratulate Native Wellness Institute because you celebrated 20 years of operations back in March. And first of all, congratulations. And second of all, what were some of the celebration events that you had to adjust to since you could no longer hold big events to celebrate?
You know, we're like the rest of Indian country, where we've learned to respond quickly, proactively, positively, and to call upon our ancestors and to do ceremony, remote ceremony. And all of that was done, and we immediately hit the ground in mid-March, and we started giving hope. We started imagining sitting in circles since we couldn't sit in circles, and we were already imagining mask to mask at that time, being proactive about keeping the infection from coming into our Indian people. We started with subjects of self-care. We started with subjects of kindness. We started with subjects of all of the values that come down from our ancestors that make us resilient, that make us like superpowered. It's almost like a moccasin path. You know, the Indians, we survive, Indians thrive. And that's what our Power Hour started with. And oh gosh, Patty, I mean, Indian country, we've had 120 plus every day an hour show that now is going out to Australia, Canada, all of the indigenous world. We get, you know, I don't know, 70,000 people viewing this Power Hour. And they're now saying to us that it's the part of the day that they go and replenish, that they go and they get back in balance. And so it's just been an incredible honor by our NWI, Native Wellness team, to provide this.
And people watch it strictly through Facebook. You put them on at noon Pacific time daily.
Yes, it's on at noon Pacific time, but it's also, the cool thing about it, Patty, is that everyone can watch it on our YouTube, and they can watch it on our website. And it's interesting because, like, even the one on anxiety and how Indians handle anxiety, or the one on how Indians handle grief, has got like the original 20,000 views. And now what we're seeing as we're going into the 18th week is that people go back and listen to the storytelling. People go back and listen to the singing. People go back and they listen to the ceremonies and, you know, the herbs and the plants. They go back and it's soothing to them. And they're telling us that, you know, that they just go, they watch people over and over because it uplifts them and they can carry on, especially, you know, with the self-care. We're just everyone is, and Native Wellness Institute is just constantly right now our biggest, the essential workers, especially in Indian country, that have been working nonstop. They want the self-care, and they want the laughter. I mean, because we got the good old Indian humor, that's allowable. and, and it's just a good, it's like a lot of it's just laughing together, because like Indians, yeah, oh yeah, tragedy. We all just like, okay, what's new? It's a tragedy. We know how to handle it.
Isn't that so true? It's like we have to laugh because our people have gone through so much through the centuries, and so laughing at oh, here we go again, and really looking at that 1918 pandemic at the turn of the century, and how did our people handle that? We don't know because social media wasn't around. But today you have social media, and people can share their jokes and share their stories, and find those ways to cope in this pandemic. Because honestly, we're looking at the next 6 months to even the next year of being in lockdown. So how are you looking long-term and planning for those, for letting people know that we're in it for the long haul? This is not going to go away in 2 months.
It's interesting. Our team, we were just talking about, it's almost like a vow, like when you make a sacred vow, and in the Indian way, we've made a vow. As long as we're here, we're going to go on the air, and we're going to, bring something positive, productive, and proactive. And around the teachings, our mission is to keep the teachings of our ancestors alive. And it's incredibly, it's just amazing how each day, like just even the use of sage, the use of medicine, just to come on. And it's interesting because people are lighting smudges. They're getting on our power hour, and we ask them to all light their smudge. So you get thousands of people lighting a smudge at one time. Patty, imagine the power of that. You get them lighting their sweetgrass at the same time, and then you get them crying at the same time, allowing themselves not just to suck it up, but just to let it out and to cry, and then say, we're all here. We're not there in person, but spiritually. And in the Indian way, remote prayer is the most powerful thing that we have. So we're committed to, in the long haul, we're going to live into the 30, 40 years. Indians are going to live another 30, our lifetime, and we're going to be here for each other on this power hour. And I think in Indian country in general, we're stepping up. Notice the forgiveness. There's like this forgiveness going on. There's like this alliance. There's like, Indian people helping Indian people. It just, it brings tears, because we're there for each other, even across nations. If it's not door to door, in that way. So Native Wellness, we're also getting a lot of requests for training. We're doing the gathering of Native Americans online. We're doing self-care for essential workers. We're doing how to deal with grief and still go to work. I mean, these are the type of topics that people are saying, we need this. And our team, we're just doing our best, and it's an honor. And our team just steps up. We just step up. There's no prep in this. It's what we do all the time, and we just help heal the healers. We help bring
That's
yes.
really important, Theta, because in this time, so many of us have lost loved ones, and we can't go home for ceremonies. And so feeling comfortable and at peace to say your prayers at home. A lot of our ceremonies have been closed or shut down this summer because of the pandemic. So almost giving that person the permission to stay home and pray, and stay home and do what you can to honor that person who's passed, or to honor the ceremony that we can't get together. And so you gave me chills when you said all of these people lighting sage together, because that is powerful. And do you find also that in Indian country, sometimes if you can't listen to your own people, it's helpful to hear it from another person in another tribe on how to handle this pandemic, how to handle stress? Because so many of our people are stressed. They're looking at what resources do we have, and where do we turn for help, and what's my tribe doing? And certainly tribal leadership's in a hard position in dealing with this.
You know, a lot of our tribes are singing songs to each other. A lot of our tribes are sending a lot of the medicine people, the networks, you know, they're asking for husk husk. They're asking for um, different roots. You know, this isn't, they're asking for not only the sage, the everyday medicine, but I see them sharing not only the medicines, but the prayers. And it's a time where it's united tribes. It's an alliance, you know, just like now we're constantly having ceremonies for the Navajo. We're constantly having ceremonies. We just had a bike ride. Our board member rode 100 miles for Yakima. All the money that he raised, we sent that to Yakima.
They're being
We're,
hit hard. White Mountain Apache is also being hit very hard too right now. Let's talk, we talked a lot about adults. What are you doing for kids?
oh, wow. We just had our first grand round. We usually go there and we have 300 youth, and we had that virtual. We had 198 youth on Zoom, like Zoom warriors, 198 youth, and they stayed on the whole time.
Wow.
And where it's interactive, it's not just, you know, sitting here in front of the camera, it's moving around. They had like a singing contest, they had like a joke contest. We're there for the youth. And our Indigenous 20-something program, all of our 20-year-olds, they're focusing on, we're choosing 4 generations. And so it's the youth talking to the youth. It's the middle age talking to the middle age. It's the elders talking to the elders. But right now, our greatest success is prevention and intervention of suicide during the pandemic with Native youth.
Well, that certainly is it's been present without the pandemic, and so continuing that work during this time is really important. One last thought, Theda, on the Native Wellness Institute and the Power Hour.
Oh my gosh, we're finding that it's like a circle. It's a digital circle of healing. People come each day, and there's tears, and there's laughter, and there's joy, and we're now seeing joy coming.
Very good. Theda Newbreast, thank you so much for joining us.
Very good.
And we'll be right back. Welcome back. Colby Kicking-Woman is our reporter based in Washington, D.C., and today he joins us from Pittsburgh. He is joining us today to talk about the effort to get the Olympic Committee to correct its record on Jim Thorpe. Welcome, Colby.
Hi, Patty. Thanks for having me.
Sure. So Jim Thorpe, you know, an Olympic phenomenon. Even the king of Sweden said that he was the greatest athlete of all times. What's the issue?
So the issue is in the official record books of the Olympics. If you go to their website, it lists Jim Thorpe as a co-winner for both the pentathlon and the decathlon, despite dominating those events. I believe he took no worse than 4th in any event, and in many of them took 1st or 2nd. And so this new petition looks to restore those records.
And why is it listed that way?
So I believe a couple years before the 1912 games in Sweden, Jim Thorpe played summer baseball and was paid for that. According to many reports and research, it was a very nominal amount that amounted to room and board. But the Olympics prides themselves on amateurism and the best amateur athletes, especially. Those rules have changed over the years, but they stripped him of his medals and the records after they found out that he had been paid to play professional baseball.
All right. And so because he accepted money for his baseball, and as you said, mostly for room and board, he was stripped of his Olympic medals. Give us a little more history about Jim Thorpe. You know, who was he and where did he come from?
So Jim Thorpe is Sac and Fox and Potawatomi, and you know, he was named the greatest athlete of the first half of the 20th century. He like won, like we just said, the gold medals in the pentathlon, decathlon, played professional football, played professional baseball, was the first commissioner of the NFL. He is just, kind of a revered hero and role model in Indian country.
And he came from the boarding school system. He was a student at Carlisle Indian Industrial School in Carlisle, Pennsylvania. And his coach was Pop Warner of the Pop Warner Football League fame that many kids today, play Pop Warner football. And so do you know much about his life at the boarding school?
I do not, unfortunately. It's one of the things I've been meaning to look more into. Although this petition kind of stems off of a biopic that's going to be coming out about Jim Thorpe. Nedra Darling is an executive producer, and I spoke to her. Martin Sensmeyer is going to be portraying Jim Thorpe, and so that's a project that Indian Country will be very excited about when it comes out.
And that biography will tell a little bit more about who he was. And when he came to Carlisle Indian School, it was at the turn of the century. So by the time he was established at school there, the 1912 Olympics came around. And your story pointed out that in 1912, Native Americans were not even citizens of the United States.
Yes, that's true. He was the first indigenous person or Native American to win a gold medal, and natives weren't considered American citizens until 1924. And so, he brought the nation all of this glory and reverence, but wasn't considered a citizen.
Right. And so as part of that team, and I would be remiss to not mention Louis Diwanima, because he was actually Jim Thorpe's teammate. And the two of them, Louis is from my tribe. He's Hopi from the village of Sangopavi. And the two of them were the track team and the cross-country team at Carlisle. And they beat all the Ivy League schools in all of the running events. And both of them went on to run and compete in other events outside of the school. So together they went to the 1912 Olympics there. And what was his quote to the king after the king said, "You're the greatest athlete of all times"? Or what did the king say exactly?
I believe when the king was King Gustav V, I believe was his name, was putting the medals around Jim Thorpe's neck. He said, "Sir, you are the greatest in the world," which is a very powerful statement. And by all accounts, Jim Thorpe just said, "Thanks."
Thanks, King. But man, a few words there. So, and the story that you wrote about, even his he competed in the pentathlon and the decathlon, and then there was another event, and he didn't even have somehow his shoes got misplaced or lost or something. What happened with that?
Yeah, so it was the last event of the decathlon, the 1,500 meters, which I believe equals is the mile or something like that. But when he went to get his shoes before the race started, they were misplaced, lost, or stolen. And so the story goes that he found two mismatched shoes in the trash. One was 2 sizes too big, so he threw on a couple extra socks, and the other was a little bit small. And he still ended up winning the race by more than 25 yards. So it just goes to show how dominant he actually was during those games.
Yes. And then after the Olympics and as he went on in his career, he was on an all Indian football team. And there's a really wonderful book called The Real All Americans. I think that's the name of it. And it talks about how these boys from Carlisle took out all their aggression on the football field against basically all the settlers from the Ivy League schools. And they invented plays that are still used in the NFL today.
Yeah, I believe the historical record says that Carlisle Indian School was the first team to throw a forward pass. And, now the NFL is a very pass-happy league, and so we can trace it back to the natives.
All the native groups. And the all Indian team, I think they were the Ouray Indians, and I think there may be a couple of all Indian teams that played professional football back in the day. It's kind of interesting to see because now today, of course, you have a few Native Americans who are playing professional football.
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure of the exact number of how many are in football and in other leagues, but natives definitely continue to make it to the highest level in their sports.
All right. So this petition that's going around now to get the Olympic Committee to change the official record, is there a deadline to turn in that petition?
I'm not sure the exact deadline. I know they're going to Nedra Darling, who I spoke to for my story, said the goal is 1 million signatures. I checked this morning and there was over 6,300. in just a week. And so it definitely gaining traction.
All right, so we're going to follow that story as the petition gains signatures, but also looking at as this Summer Olympics starts to roll around here. Colby, Kicking Woman, anything else you want to add on this story?
If you want to sign the petition, you can go to brightpathstrong.com. And yes, like you said, this is something that we will continue to keep an eye on.
Okay, and then looking at the biography, do they have an idea of when that will be finished?
I did not receive any word on when that is, but that's another thing we'll definitely keep an eye out for.
Okay, very good. Colby, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Patty.
And thank you for watching. Take care of yourselves. Your life is precious. I'm Patty Thalohungva. Join us again tomorrow.
This is Indian Country Today.